Carl Bates.
Thank you, Mr Speaker, for the opportunity to speak on the bill this evening. I want to start off by just acknowledging the process that we have been through the Select Committee and the rational improvement to the bill that process delivered. And I think my colleague Tom Rutherford spoke very well about what that process was like. And I think when we are in Select Committee, when we aren't in our party colour corners, where we are able to ask questions and work towards an objective as a team, we end up with better legislation. And I felt the Select Committee did that. I felt the member, Kieran McAnulty, approached the Select Committee and engaged in that process really well. And I just want to acknowledge the member for that, and certainly learnt a thing or two about taking a complex, in that it isn't unanimously supported across the House, bill to the Select Committee and being willing to negotiate changes that would make it more palatable to the House. I think the RSA component of that is part of the bill that clearly has support across the House and maybe as a standalone would unanimously find its way through the House, because I'm sure members are all and have all been at RSAs on Anzac morning where drinks have been consumed, and that is part of Anzac tradition here in New Zealand. I take potentially, though, a slightly different view to my colleague Tom Rutherford about being elected an MP and what the role of an MP is to do on a conscience issue. And that's not to say that he's right and I'm wrong, or vice versa. It's that I take the view that we are elected to this House as representatives, with people knowing who we are, what we stand for, where we come from, and the sort of approach that we're likely to bring to a discussion. And I think anyone that knows me and my part of the world knows that sometimes I bring the contrarian view to the table, but also that I am at heart a traditionalist. And I think that there is somewhere in the conversation about Christmas and Easter that I get nervous. And I get nervous that while it is rational, potentially, to make some of these changes, and while it is broadly acceptable to many members of this House, it's one step further towards views that have been expressed as part of this debate about why have any restrictions ultimately around Easter and Christmas Day at all. And that is a concern to me, Mr Speaker. I think that there is a respect that we can have for differing views, for different perspectives around what built this nation. And on Monday afternoon and Monday evening, I spent time taking letters around to Chinese constituents and businesses, wishing them all the best for Chinese New Year. And it was really clear in some of the conversations I had with business owners of Chinese descent about what they would be doing if they were with their family, potentially in other places around New Zealand where family members were, or back home in China if they'd headed home. And a couple expressed to me that this was the time of the year that normally they would like to have travelled home and been with family. And it made me take pause around what some things do in the context of being at the fabric of a nation. And part of the fabric of this country is Easter and Christmas. And there's something special about Easter, and there's something special about Christmas. Now, for some of us, that specialness comes from a view we have as Christians. For others, it comes from a view of that being part of the fabric of New Zealand. I've spent time, as I'm sure other members in this House have, I've been lucky enough to spend time overseas, to have Christmas overseas, and experience Christmas in other places. And I was sharing with a colleague earlier this evening, I remember one Christmas day when I was living in South Africa where I met my wonderful wife and we had our eldest son Angus. And Christmas Day we'd forgot something we needed for Christmas dinner, and I hopped in the car and I went down the road and I bought it at Woolworths. And while I was standing there in Woolworths, looking at the team at the checkout, not many people in the Woolworths at the time, I just took a pause and went, if I was in New Zealand right now, I wouldn't be able to do this. And actually, that's a good thing. There is a good thing about us having times where we as a nation, so this is part of the fabric of our country. And I know that this bill is not allowing that to happen, and I understand that. But there are New Zealanders who are legitimately concerned that any changes around Easter and Christmas take us a step further to the views being expressed while I'm standing speaking in this house, trying to be respectful about something that I know different people have very different views, and we should be allowed different views on. But there is a place, I believe, for us to say this is the way things happen, have happened, and will continue to happen here in New Zealand. So, Mr. Speaker, without going over the details of the bill that have been traversed widely by members already this evening, what I wanted to make sure was added to the discussion is that, in my view, and in the views of constituents that I've talked to about this issue, and in the view of many New Zealanders, you shouldn't, maybe is a better word, stand up in a debate in this House and simply say Christmas and Easter should be open slather. And I know that the member, and I acknowledge that the member has been, Kieran McAnulty, has been very respectful about the way he has traversed this part of the question through the Select Committee. But there are other members who have expressed the wider view on where this should lead. And I feel uncomfortable not standing up in the House this evening, along with some of my colleagues who share this view, and saying there is a line, and it is okay for us in New Zealand to draw that line and say, this is the way we do things here. And I, therefore, do not commend this bill to the House this evening. And I think, Mr. Speaker, I'll leave it there.